On this episode of Heart and Headwork Podcast, we'll be deep diving into the concept of resiliency, why it's important to cultivate, and exactly how to implement practices that will help you improve your resiliency over time.
Hi, Heart and Headworkers. This episode contains some heavy topics, so we wanted to add a trigger warning for mentions of sexual assault. Please take care of yourself, and we love you.
Welcome to Heart and Headwork, the podcast for women who want to lead with strategy and soul.
I'm Tessa, the people connector who embraces vulnerability and dreams big.
And I'm Rocky, the strategist who thrives on logic and turns vision into action.
We combined our superpowers and founded Maven, a community that empowers women.
Including Maven District, the largest collective of women-owned small businesses in the world.
This podcast is for women like you, building something real and wanting more than just business advice.
You'll hear honest conversations, practical tools, and personal stories about what it actually takes to build purpose-driven businesses.
If you're building with your whole self, heart and head, this is a space for you.
Join us on the journey.
Rocky, how do you define resiliency? Will you define it for the audience so we're all working off the same page?
Well, according to Webster's dictionary, the actual definition, 1, the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties, i.e. toughness, and 2, the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, i.e. elasticity. I actually didn't know that.
And I was just thinking, I like the second one maybe better.
I do actually like the second one better because if you were to ask me what my definition of resiliency is, it is the ability to keep going. And I used to think it was toughness, but it's not now. Because every time I do something with force, I get typically not the best result. So the elasticity, the idea is like this more pliable, mutual motion between things as
and
opposed
that it's
to
changing shape, right? It doesn't go
like
exactly back to where it was.
Mm-hmm.
There's movement to it. So it's not, toughness is a rock.
Yes.
Right? And like, we're certainly not rocks, are we? That's too hard.
I'm a Rocky.
I know, but but everyone that knows you, you may seem tough on the outside. You're nice and squishy on the inside and elastic.
I'm a hypersensitive individual.
HSP. I'm going to say newly defined.
No.
You always knew, or you now have language to it.
I always knew. I just didn't say it out loud.
Oy, fair enough. I'm so glad that your feelings are allowed now.
Here I am doing a podcast. And look what you can do too. If you were once a hypersensitive person that never said anything, you can start a podcast because, as we were talking earlier, that's the magic of the internet. Woo woo.
All right. Well, today we're going to talk about what resiliency is, why it's important, and how to build resilience so you can take it into your everyday, take it into your business, and hope that you'll be able to take these tools and share them other places. I'm pretty excited to talk about this topic. It's one that is near and dear to my heart, Rocky.
Entrepreneurship. Resiliency all day long.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
All right. Here's my question to kick us off. We'll set the container. And I want you to go deep. I want to see all the parts. My little crystal.
All the hypersensitive parts of the crystal.
I do. What's one instance that you think has made you maybe the most resilient?
I wish I could bundle it all up into a nice package and say this is the one instance, but I think it's the myriad of instances over time, death by 1,000 cuts. However, there are quite a few that I've pretty terrible. And I think the big shift from a business perspective, which was also hyper tied to my personal life, was getting fired for the last time. That one just really, if you've been listening to the podcast, you will know the fun fact that I have been fired 5 times. Still a great success, even being fired 5 times. But I actually think I might have even been fired 6 or 7. I'm trying to go back and remember. But the most recent one was a big shift because it shook my identity as an employee. And it made me have to reevaluate that identity and what that would mean.
And what identity were you holding on to as an employee? Like
I'm
expand on that.
I'm a really hard worker. I am someone you would want on your team. I am someone who you can depend on. I get results. I work smart. I work hard. I do all these amazing things. And so to get fired was, so I'm none of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now not smart. I'm now not a hard worker. I'm not someone you can rely on. So it was pretty impactful. And I had to build a lot of resilience because of that, because otherwise I could have just sat on my couch for a 7-day weekend, 24/7.
7-day weekend.
I did.
That's okay. I feel like that's a rough blow.
7-day weekend.
Is this the time that they said you were starting a cuckoo?
Yes.
I mean,
like I kind of
think that's a little badassy. Like I have never had someone be that threatened by me to think that I was starting a cuckoo.
Yeah.
I'm starting a community, but not a coup.
I love it. I love that now you were trying to do puns too. I dig it. That was a good one. That was a great one. I love it. Yeah. That, my former employee fired me because they were threatened that I was starting a coup. Because since then I've been a consultant, so I've been fired from clients, if you will, or let go. But that was already after the shift of being an entrepreneur, so that's a little bit different of a feeling as an employee.
Uh-huh.
And I, for the record, was not Che. I was not doing no coups. There was nothing. I was just asking questions. But anyway.
Do you think I know I'm jumping ahead, but I'm just thinking of you and your 7-day weekend. How did you recover and keep going?
This would be, I didn't keep going very well because my version of resistance was toughness. So I was forcing my way through it. And that's
what did that look like for those of us that don't know you or didn't know you during that time, or other tough people out there?
Didn't give it any space. So immediately after getting fired, it was, I must go find a job. There was no other option. I didn't even consider the idea of I could start a job for myself. So there was that, no space, overworking my body. So going to the gym and not just doing something nicely, but like hitting it frickin' hard, way too hard.
For multiple hours, I'm guessing.
Oh,
not
yeah.
just you're doing an hour workout, moving on with your day.
No. It would be like I'd work out in the morning, I'd work out in the afternoon, I'd probably work out at night. Maybe I'd do a 2-hour workout. I mean, it was like trying to diminish my body into to submission in some way because I was looking for control.
Control.
You get fired, you have a bad experience, anything that we're probably going to talk about today regarding why you need resilience. Most of it for me is the lack of control. That's the hardest part. And so the resilience was figuring out, well, how do I not harness control around things that I literally can't control? And the things that I can control, don't do it to a self-harm standpoint, which would be overworking.
Which is the working out till.
And then also just thinking all day long about getting fired, like not being able to relinquish.
To put the thought down.
Yeah, that constant spiral of, I got fired. Like what happened? I got fired. And I think a portion of that, obviously, like anything, it's got the shadow and the light side where you do it to some degree and it's good. You do it to too much of a degree and it's bad. I was telling everybody I got fired to the point that it was an unhealthy amount of talking about it because it was just languishing in that feeling and not figuring out how to grieve it, not figuring out how to move through it. So just for too long.
How eventually did you, even though you said you were doing it with force or control, what eventually popped you back up? If you can think back to that time.
I think this is the zero fucks. I think I developed this philosophy, which is not like originally mine in any way, but it's just a variation of multiple different types of versions of how do you figure out what's important and how do you make decisions to move towards what's important. And I had done that really well with pretty much everything else. Relationships, strangers talking crap, interactions on the street, like things that were very far removed from my identity. But when that identity got hit, I'm a bad employee, which is what I had built my whole identity around. I couldn't apply the theory. So
can you explain the theory for those of us that are...
This is just turning into the Rocky podcast.
The new, I have always understood it. You explained this zero fucks given the other day in a way that I hadn't heard you explain it before, and I was shocked. Originally, I had all taken it from zero fucks given means you don't care what other people think about you, and I've always struggled with that, as you know, and you work really well with that, I think. So can you expand that definition? Because I think you're actually speaking about another side of that here.
Yeah, this idea of zero fucks. So it's not that you give zero fucks. It's that you give zero fucks to things that don't matter. So it's not about apathy. It's about figuring out, as a human, we have limited resources. So I can only care about so much. Where do I apply care? And where do I not apply care? So that I can ultimately get clarity. And you can only really do that because it's kind of like you've called it your tickets. You have X number of tickets for the day of energy. How do you want to give it out? Who do you want to give it out to? You might use 3 tickets somewhere. You might use 0 tickets somewhere else. Same idea of
being
zero
conscious
fucks.
about where you were
Limited resources.
spending those resources. And in your opinion, when you were in that ruminating, I don't know, I'm putting words a little bit into your mouth, stuck space.
Yeah, spiral.
You were giving all your tickets, if you will, to this, firing.
Yeah, I was giving it to the guy who fired me.
Or the belief that you were then not these things, hard worker, driver, all of these other things.
I was letting an outside force control my own value. So I had to figure out how to, release control and ego, like release the control of, well, I can't control whether or not someone's going to fire me. If I'm going to keep getting hired by a company as an employee, they have the ability to fire me. That's actually, I'm making a choice to go into a space where that could be the outcome. Good or bad employee aside. Someone could fire me for a million different reasons. And then it was also letting go of the ego that you can't possibly fire me. I am a great worker. Well, I could be a great worker, but what if I'm not a great worker for that company?
Yeah, what if you're not in the right place?
Yeah, and that's not a reflection necessarily on me, but it's recognizing that I can't be everything, as Jen said so eloquently, everything to everyone. So I am going to come up across where my personality is going to be in that situation, again, releasing control, but also just, it's not about me too. The second deeper piece of that is, why did this person fire me? I wasn't curious about it from their perspective. I was curious about it from what does this mean for me? Yeah. Now I'm blah, blah, blah. Never took a moment to think, well, what's going on in his world? I mean, if he's threatened, why is he threatened? I mean, that could have unraveled a whole different level of understanding. However, I don't need to give tickets or fucks towards that guy because he did it really poorly. It's not worth my time and energy, etc. But also taking ownership. What did I do to give someone the perspective that I was trying to start a coup? That doesn't come from nowhere. I had some piece in that, and it may not have been a big piece. It may have been a small piece, but either way, completely blaming is pointless.
Yeah. And unhelpful for you to learn or grow from.
Yes. Because if I just kept doing the same thing over and over again, like getting fired 5 times, like maybe there's some ownership involved in this situation. So that was a big enough wake-up call to be like, oh, what piece did I play? And then lastly, I think that just again, I now have freedom. I'm fired. I have nothing, no obligations at all. And I was choosing to just not do anything. But in fact, I had freedom to do anything. It was just a matter of what I was going to do. So that was the like...
Was that like a lens shift, would you say? Or would you describe it a different way? Just because nothing changed. You were on the couch, but something in there shifted for you.
Yes.
That you were like, freedom, freedom.
I think this is where the philosophy of zero fucks I could apply everywhere else. And I did so really successfully. All of those ideas, I just needed to figure out how to apply it to this situation, which was the identity of me as an employee. And then it gave me, like, once I was starting to put those pieces together, so putting that lens on this story, put it on this story, in the same story. I am a great worker. I am an amazing employee. I was able to shift into, well, right now I have nothing the fuck to do. I don't need to go hurt my body. I would really love to be able to fish any day, like for long periods of time. So I started going fishing, and it was like, whoa, holy shit, this is awesome. I have the freedom to go fish. Granted, in the back of my mind, it's like, how long can I do this for? I don't have any money. It's just not sustainable. But in that present moment, I needed to create space. So I was able to create enough space to then start putting the lens. So I think that's probably the first step, is something happens that's bad and we tend to push into it, at least me, a pusher, maybe how you describe yourself as a driver. And you can't do anything with resistance and force. You actually have to figure out how to step back or step to the side or do something to give space, be the water, not the rock. Rocky. And then it was like, oh, okay, now I can put the lens that I'm really well practiced on in this situation. But until then I couldn't do it. Yeah. I was eating burgers every day on the couch, binge watching, doing everything I don't actually do. Because if you do know me, it would be like, my first choice is going outside. My first choice is playing with my dogs. My first choice is fishing. 7-day weekend.
Traveling.
Was boring.
Go do some. Rocky's going to be outside if she has time.
And I was inside.
Painting, writing.
None of that.
Yeah.
Nope. So yeah, I think the getting space. So that's, we can talk about all of these minute details, but what's your resilient big moment?
I loved how you said death by 1,000 paper cuts, because when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking, gosh, just one, right? Like we have these
we're getting old.
Over
you can't just
these
have
chapters. One. Yes. And in my mind, there's, let's call it 10 big hard things in my life that have shaped my life. And plenty of other things have shaped my life too, but there's several of them in there. But the one that probably rocked me most to my core, giving a warning here, we're going to be talking about sexual assault. So anybody that has any triggers there, skip ahead a couple minutes, was when I was 18, I was raped on my senior trip in Mexico. And that experience has shaped me to who I am today in so many ways. But the power that is taken away from someone when they go through that is something like maybe I've never experienced again. And just that hard things make you redefine. And Heather, who's one of our lovely humans at Maven, said, dying to yourself to become the next version of yourself. And thinking back to that moment of me, I remember the outfit I was wearing, the cutest little sunflower dress. And I remember the moment like it was yesterday. I remember the smells. I remember being held down. I remember trying to get out of it. And then for years after, thinking it was my fault. And then figuring out spaces to forgive him. He was also a teenager. We were so young. Because holding on to that resentment was doing nothing for me, and getting away from it. And while I was in it,
I'm sorry.
it was so big for a little fresh 18-year-old, that's so new to the ways of the world, but also to sex, to how things are supposed to work, or how your voice feels stuck in your throat. And, growing up in a time, this was over 25 years ago at this point, if I'm doing the math right, the language was so different around that.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a lot of discussion on, if you don't feel good in a situation, get the fuck out, Like there's a lot of discussion about that now, but that was not something talked about then at all.
No. And it was always the questions of, what did you do? Or, boys will be boys.
Mm-hmm. Or how you were dressed, or it's your fault because you were drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So the blame that came from that, and the self-hatred that came from that, is a space that I can pop into, but also the strength that came from that, of being able to take my story back and speak it.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a big tool for you, because I know that this is something you have talked about multiple times in multiple mediums, in multiple very, very public ways. Was that a tool for you to build resilience for that experience, was sharing it?
Yeah, I think that when we can share the most intimate parts of our selves, or maybe the most hurt parts of ourselves, it allows people to feel connected to you,
mm-hmm.
and feel maybe less alone. There's so many times I've told that story, and I started telling it in college, so only shortly thereafter. And I would have women I didn't know come up to me on campus, because I was on a rape advisory board. And they would just cry. And sometimes I was the first person that they'd ever told, and it was years old or months old.
How did you, because I think a lot of times when you're trying to figure out resilience, the answer is not obvious. Obviously, you don't know how to go and find resiliency, but you have a knack when you come up against something that is hard. In this case, this situation, you so quickly, it seems, reach out for help. Like you joining the board or joining a group immediately after it happens, to give yourself the space and to give others the space to talk about those situations. Is that just inherent to you, or have you built that skill of seeking and sharing the burden with others?
I don't think it was quick in the moment. It took me a good, probably 8 months.
That seems so quick to me.
To speak it out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once I spoke it, it was like I took off a weight vest,
mm-hmm.
or armor. And I was exhausted from holding that for so long, but I was also so much lighter. And I didn't do it. It took me so long to name it. I had a friend that said something to me and said, I think you may benefit from talking to someone. And I had never really had experience in therapy. And I walked over in the pouring rain across campus to the therapy clinic that was open to any student. And I said, I think something's wrong with me. And she said, what? And I told her the story, and she said, it's not your fault. Someone took that from you and you were raped. And it was the first time I put a word to it or assault, however, whatever word feels
like it makes sense. Yeah.
Makes sense
Resonates.
for you. It's just, and in that moment, it just was like, someone had taken the pressure off the fire, I guess. And as I kept talking and kept talking and kept talking to her, that's the way out for a lot of this pain, is to get it out of your body. And whether you do it with words or by fishing. And I know I do a lot of that in nature, and it's not always with words, but I think that was my first time. And there was a lot of shame. And I think every time I shared it, the feeling of shame can be so big, right? For a lot of us. But every time I shared it, my feeling of shame got smaller. So it's a little like every time I speak about it, I'm healing myself. And it's helping others. And I knew that almost the first time I told my story publicly, that if the pain, I cannot ever go back and take that experience away from me. But if I can touch the pain and share it with others, and their pain gets to be lessened, then it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Or the why for me of like, why did this happen?
And it seems like this, was this a huge catalyst for you? This idea of naming something, talking about something, shrinking the feelings that were negative through that communication? Because this is something I've seen you do in business now, when fortunately we are not experiencing the same situation that you experienced as an 18-year-old. But in all of those little situations, I'm always mind blown when you use that power of vulnerability and you just come right out and say it without hesitation. And I'm wondering if that's, 25 years of practice.
Yeah, I think so. I think that reminder that we are all one, but we all experience the exact same feelings through different experiences, helps us feel less alone when we can connect on that. You might have not had my experience, but you can relate to that feeling of shame or blame, or for me, crushed up piece of a gum wrapper. And I remember that always in like religious teachings, like don't let anyone, you'll be a chewed up piece of gum if that happens to you. Don't have sex. And so that feeling is something that a lot of people have experienced, but maybe through different modalities to get there, but the feeling is the same. We all have, I don't know, we have a feelings wheel we use all the time, but there's 75 feelings on there?
There's a lot.
There's a lot, but there's not that many. We have millions and millions of experiences, but they all go
back down to that core, bigger feeling, the anger, the fear, the sadness, the happy. And there's like usually like one more. Yeah.
Man.
When I don't want to feel like we're diminishing what you just shared, but when I hear it and I think about something I had just said about all I was doing was talking about getting fired to like anyone that would listen. And my interpretation of it to this date is still, what are you doing? Like wasting your time sharing. What you're bringing up is making me think like, I probably was not wasting my time. It probably was actually a very unrecognized healing process of grieving my former self in some way. And I couldn't, and it probably could have been accelerated had I named it, which I couldn't at the time. I can in retrospect. And it probably would have helped to embrace and be, thankful for the moments I had to share it with people who were willing to listen and cared about what was going on. And, so I'm taking that as an important takeaway because I don't share verbally or publicly very often. I like to do it in quiet, internal ways, but the writing and being able to share that, which I just recently did for like the first time, that's like, you're right. It is a huge weight being lifted. And I would guarantee that's building our resiliency, the collective consciousness of you feel this, I feel this, I'm not alone. I can be elastic because I'm sharing with someone else who can also, you're showing me elasticity is possible. That's that inspiration. And, that's incredible.
Yeah. I think a tool that has really helped, I think, as a building resiliency tool, and you're talking about this, but those of you out there that do any sort of guided meditation, or even if you don't, there is this amazing woman named Tara Brach, and she's incredible. Her podcast is incredible as well, but she has this tool called the RAIN tool. And I use it a lot of times when I'm trying to tap into that resiliency and I'm trying to tap into those emotions. And you mentioned them. RAIN, R stands for recognize. So that's the naming. A stands for acceptance. I stands for investigate. If you think about you going back and looking at, okay, what's true here? And N stands for nurture.
What's the nurture part?
The nurture is what do you need to give yourself to heal? And that's hard.
Yeah, I was going to say, there
one.
is the hard stop for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, where what we've been talking about, the idea of self-care, and that not being selfish, that has been beaten into me in so many ways that it is, I can't even think of how to nurture, because even in the moments of nurturing, like working out, which could be such a healthy, wonderful release when you need that clarity, or you're looking after the, what to name it, how to investigate it, even the awareness of it. Yeah, no, I'm going to go beyond
the nurture. This is how, I've heard her talk about it before. Because for some people, it helps them take themselves out of it. If you imagine, here we are having tea. You're taking your best friend to tea, and I just tell you that story. What I just told you was the first thing you said.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. That is you nurturing me. So what?
Even deeper. I just immediately went to self-nurture because I like to be alone.
No, but if you have a hard time self-nurturing, pretend you're taking your best friend to tea, and pretend you're taking, and they're sharing with you these big, hard things. What would you say to them? I.e., what would you say to yourself? And that is, I'm sorry. You don't even have to change it. You're just there for them.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sorry. I want you to know you're amazing.
Well, so let's back up just a little bit. So this awareness idea, because I'm sure listeners, if you are also struggling with, how do you even know when someone isn't practicing resiliency? Like, how can you become aware of, I need these tools before we even think about applying them? Like, what does it look like when someone isn't?
I mean, I think
practicing it.
I think about you saying the 7-day weekend on the couch. So I'm going to go to stuckness. That's not a word, but the times that I've had to pull out my, let's call it your resiliency, tools. It's when I feel stuck. And I think that is the time when you can feel that that stuck.
How does stuck show up for you? Because when I think about it, I think of analysis paralysis.
Yeah,
That I get in my head, and I'm just like trying to solve the same problem over and over and over again. And then I get to burnout. But for you, I've heard that, you've used previously like scarcity is like where you, I don't know if you actually said, I want to say that you dropped into scarcity. Or you're just aware of, you're feeling like you're on the way towards using scarcity. And you mentioned this idea of above and below, excuse me, above and below the line. So I actually feel like this is possibly where the T thing comes into play again, is we may not be able to be self-aware of when we're in burnout. We may not be able to be self-aware. I mean, that's the ultimate goal of like, I know I'm in analysis paralysis. But taking a friend out to tea, that same concept, and being like, okay,
what do you need?
Yeah, what's going on? What do you need? So we can at least identify that resiliency.
And recognizing what it feels like in your body, because I'm saying stuck, but what does it feel like? Is it that pit in your stomach, or is it that feeling in your chest that's tight and you're anxious? What is that? And how can you move towards the feeling rather than away from the feeling? And that's where the real shifts can happen. And I often think of me sitting on the bottom of a muddy pond with no light coming through, and seeing that there's it feels like there's no choice because I'm stuck. And that idea of like, could I lift myself from the pond and up into a little hot air balloon to see the path out? And when I'm sitting on the pond is when I'm like, woe is me, or like I am a chewed up piece of gum, instead of, whoa, let's get into that little balloon and sit up top and look out over the horizon to find out where are the paths out. And wow, look at that flower down there that grew out of the lotus mud. Because sometimes that's important to sit at the bottom of the pond, but at some point, like, come up for air, give yourself a life jacket. So what does it feel like in your body when you're stuck? And what does it feel like to, when I say move, how do you do that? For me, sometimes it is literally, I need to go on a hike with a friend and word vomit and ask them for advice. I love to do that. But then often it probably looks a lot more like what you talk about, and it's quiet and presence in nature.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm going to ruin the rain analogy, but I feel like the important things that we're like circling around when we get that hot air balloon of what are we even talking about when we talk about what is resiliency and how do you build it? I mean, clearly resiliency in business seems like it's essential, because you're constantly facing decision making, you're constantly facing problems, you're constantly facing all of this stuff, because you are in theory very much in it all the time. And it doesn't sound like either of us are able to have just magically had resilience appear. It comes from building this through experience and taking the time to do all of the sharing, and the awareness factor and the exploration factor. I would also add that, like, we need to find the method that works, that not everybody's version is going to be the same. You sharing in public, writing in private, both
Are very similar.
Using
your voice.
Yes. Using your voice is a great summary of how to do that. So I'm thinking now, because we could probably dig into this for an endless period of time. We had some books and resources that we had talked about that would be clearly things that we have used to improve our listeners' experience or give them a new perspective on it. And the one I wanted to throw in was The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. So I think you guys should go check that one out. And you had also earlier said
Tara Brach.
Which one did she do?
Rain. And
She's
she's
the rain
also
lady.
done several books, but in particular, I love her rain meditation. So look that up. And then there's a woman named Byron Katie that is pretty incredible in talking about resiliency. And then a funny thing that I think is a piece of this too that we haven't talked about is this idea that you keep getting up. And the more you practice resiliency, the quicker you can get up. So, case in point.
Don't stop.
Don't stop.
Get
And
fired 5 times.
It's okay. Like you'll get quicker. I mean, that experience when I was 18 wrecked me for months. But years later, having other hard things, they did not wreck me as long because I had the strength or the endurance that I had built from that experience. And my family motto growing up was Arnesons never give up. So I thank my parents for that one.
I also feel like my family's like we just don't back down from things. We just keep trying. Doesn't matter how many times it goes poorly.
And you might not be going forward, right? But
yes.
But you're getting off the couch.
Although I do love the phrase 7-day weekend.
I do. And I must
I think
say
that could be a great goal.
a 7-day weekend, fine, do 7 days, but maybe don't make it 21, I guess it depends. I actually shouldn't define it for people. It depends on what you're working with because everyone's going to go through this differently. And
Just
I have
like
no idea. Depending on the big trauma, you might be there for 65.
Someone just told me earlier today that was the big piece of advice that they were given about resiliency because I had asked someone. It is built like anything at a completely different timeline for every single person. So yeah, for me, it wasn't a 7-day weekend. It was like a 3-month weekend.
Yeah.
But that was okay because that's what I needed. So that goes back to like finding your method and finding your length of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh,
All right.
We're probably going to have to do section 2, 3, 4,
Part
5, 6.
2. I'm sweaty on that one. Thank you. All right, let's wrap it up. I feel like we're hitting our stride in this one. So let's keep talking.
This is how we can talk for over 45 minutes.
I know.
And with ease. Yes.
To our listeners and viewers out there, we can't do this without you. Your interaction is key. What do you like? What do you not like? What do you want more of? Please give us your feedback on this episode on our Instagram page at maven.community. Share it with your friends. Click on the link in the description and join our community on Geneva, where we'll be posting even more resources and content for you. All right. Love your partner.
Love you too.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your big tea. Big tea.
Love ya.
Love you too.